The last app that I used was Facebook dating, and I had heard about it at my cousin was telling me about it at a family dinner, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I just like broke up with my girlfriend. He's like, I'm just checking out Facebook dating. I was like, what's that? And anyway, signed up like at the house, and yeah, like between like 2 or 3 days later, I met the guy I'm with now that I'm actually engaged to.
Oh my gosh, today I'm so excited. Rosie is here and I'm so excited. I know you don't know Rosie yet, but you're gonna freaking love her. You're gonna say hi, Rosie.
Hi, Mama Jackie.
I love it. First of all, I'm not old enough to be her mother, but I'll still be Mama Jackie. Like, don't age me like that, girl. No, but
It's endearment.
seriously, Rosie was like my first client, like off the grid, like where me and her connected with music, and her journey has been amazing. I have really seen so much growth. I'm like so excited you're here, and like where you're at right now. Like I'm gonna have to just like we're gonna have to just talk about all the things. Like, but she's such an important person on this journey for me personally, just because I saw her just being an incredible woman. Oh my gosh. And I was like, and she was like, oh, Jackie, I need some help. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, let me help you. And to see where you are right now from where you started, like we need to talk about that and share it. And I think it's going to be really inspiring for a lot of women. So yeah, Rosie, tell us a little bit about you and your story.
Yeah, so well, yeah, like Jackie said, we connected over music on Facebook, and I don't remember exactly how it came about, but I think one day we were just chit-chatting. You're like, "Oh, you don't sound so good. Like, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, well, dating this stupid guy," and I kind of started to rant, and I think I had just broken up with him. I don't even remember, but she's like, "Girl, maybe you're the asshole." Like, and I was like, not, I was looking for a pity party. I wasn't looking for someone to tell me I was an asshole. But she did, and we talked about it, and she basically just said, well, like, have you written out your non-negotiables? And I think that was a turning point for me, because I hadn't, like, I had this idea, kind of, sort of what I was looking for, but I hadn't really articulated my non-negotiables. It was always like, well, I want this and I want this and I want this, but I hadn't really like made a concrete conscious list of, well, this is a hell no.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
and so at that time, I was also like, okay, I hate to admit it, but I was also in a place in life where it was kind of like take what you can get. It
Yeah.
sounds so bad to say that out loud, but like I really like I wasn't really going out much. Like I'm always working, I was playing gigs, and at the gigs, like no one ever approached me at a gig. It was just like, okay, I'm here to sing, and people like, bat their eyes at you, and like they could tell they make it known that they're checking you out, but they never like came up to say, hey, like, can I take your number? Can I like get a coffee with you? Nothing. So at that point, like the few occasions that someone actually would say something somewhere was like, okay, this is my chance, because this doesn't really happen. Rather
Yeah.
and I was so against online dating. I just felt like I was like, ugh, like with all the guys everywhere, and like I have to check online. Man, I, I really had this negative view of it, almost like I had reached the bottom of the barrel. And it was so not like that, but it was just how I perceived it and how I heard others around me talk about it. So I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, but
finally,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like, wait, let me speak to this for a second, because you kind of like skimmed over your ex. Now, wait a second. That was funny, and I have to keep things real. And let me tell you something. So many women are dealing with the ex, like that, like haunting ex. Like they have like our exes can have this hold on us. And when I started chatting with you were having a hard time letting go of that ex. And I remember like basically pushing your ass like out,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, no, like this guy doesn't meet your non-negotiables. Like this is not your person. And I feel like you were really scared, but what I love about you, and we had those one-on-one talks, and you really were like, Mama Jackie, I'm gonna trust you on this. And I love that you did, because I don't think it was easy. I don't think it's easy for anybody, any woman who's dated a guy and cared about him. And then you see some freaking red flags, but it's hard to just say bye-bye. It really is sometimes. But I love that you trusted me and you did say bye-bye with a little, you're a little reluctant, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's yeah, but like I want you to be real about that because I feel like a lot of women have a hard time saying bye. And I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think it's because you're so scared of like there's nobody else out there or like what am I gonna
Right.
find?
So the more embarrassing part about this particular ex is that there were red flags from years ago, and it was someone I already knew for a long time, but not that we were, you know, buddies and pals or anything. It was just, yeah, had gotten acquainted years before, and then there was already a red flag at that time. I made an escape because I was, I guess, in a different headspace then. And then we reconnected over a mutual interest, and
I'm sorry. Wait, I'm sorry. You said I made an escape. I was like,
yeah, it was
what?
like in hindsight, it's like, oh, like the smart Rosie at that time dodged it. The second
Right,
time,
right.
the second time I was in such a low place,
Yeah.
and you know, he kind of resurfaced in my life and was really nice, and I felt like, oh, maybe he's evolved in like these last 5 years that I haven't seen him.
Mhm.
Let's give this a real try. And yeah, there were already tons of red flags. Like this was like a relationship that never should have happened,
Yes.
and I let it, and it was
Mhm.
hard to say no to it because I was in such a low place, but I did anyway, almost going into it being like, okay, if this ends, like this is really gonna fucking hurt
Yeah.
because I did it to myself.
Yeah.
um and
You're the
and it,
asshole.
and it so did backfire. But then I think what made it so complicated to leave, so outside of the fact that he was a narcissist and a manipulator amongst many other terrible, terrible things, but I think what was so tricky was that he reawakened a lot of old fears that I had, like, you know, childhood trauma related fears, self-confidence fears, and just like fear of failure and who I was as a woman. And I think that because that was awakened, I felt too weak to really leave because I was like, well, like I'm not worth anything.
Yes. Oh my
But it was
God.
weird because
Yes.
like intellectually I knew that wasn't true, but I didn't believe that.
Yes.
So then when you said, okay, well, like what's your list of non-negotiables? And also just for context, like I broke up with him in the beginning of the pandemic. Like this was like around the time that the pandemic started. Um, so, you know, at that point it was like, oh well, everything's shit anyway. Like I got nothing to lose. Like, you know, but I was still whining about this like 6 months later because he was still messaging me and like apologizing for cheating on me and like this and that and whatever. And I felt I felt bad for him.
Oh,
Like
how so?
I
So
was angry, but I just felt bad for him. It was like, oh, you're such a pathetic person. Like, but you also really hurt me, and I also cared about you. But I then it was like really like a questioning period. Like, do I really care about you, or did I think I cared about you because of how you manipulated me? So
mm,
I couldn't see like even what was true anymore. I was literally questioning my feelings. I'm like, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm angry,
yeah.
very angry. So I was mostly consumed by anger and like, you know, this like secret desire for revenge that I would never actually execute. But like, but it was always like I want to stick around long enough to see the revenge. Like and and so at that point, I started, you know, obviously the pandemic, like we had no work and like there was tons of stuff going on and I was basically just home and had way too much time to myself to think and feel sorry for myself. But I used that time to start discovering, okay, well, like what am I feeling? Like what are like how can I dig deeper? What are these triggers from? Why did he have the power to reignite that in me? What was it that he was doing that I was attracted to or repulsed by? I don't know. So I was trying to do all this digging, and then that's where I guess you kind of stepped in. It was like, girl, like you got to stop talking to him, and you know whatever. And obviously that really hurt to hear. Like, you know we need to stop talking to our ex, but then doing it is like, oh no, I can't imagine not talking to him.
Yes.
Um, but then that's when like one of my other friends also kicked me in the ass, and she's like, "Okay, girl, like download OK Cupid like now." And
Yes.
and I just felt so like emotionally dirty, like just opening so a dating app. I'm like, oh gosh, I've come to this point in my life. And
Oh my God.
um so I started with like with OkCupid, and then it like went over to Bumble, and then Hinge, and then Facebook dating, and then Plenty of Fish. And anyway, like I had like 5 or 6 of them going at the same time. And
Yeah.
what was so sad was I started to see that there were the same faces on all the apps.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you think that, okay, I didn't find anyone on this app, like let me go on another one. But then you realize everyone is thinking the same way. So there's the
Right.
same pool all the time.
Yeah.
So so finally you start talking to a few, you're like, oh well, what the hell? I've seen you 5 times already. Like, let's just start talking. But but I guess because there was no expectation, it was kind of like, okay, well, this let's just be social. We had curfews and lockdowns in Montreal. Everything was closed, so we couldn't go out anyway. It had to be virtual dating.
Yeah.
And I think again with like where I was and that's this particular point in my life, virtual dating was perfect because I had no obligation to anything. My phone was dying if I didn't want to talk to you, and like
Exactly.
at
No,
any point in time, this was over.
and also, like one of my biggest rules when you're dating, and I feel like I used to lead with the physical, and the physical shit can really, confuse us and get us attached quickly.
Yeah.
And before we even know the person, I even know like if they're really right for us. So I
Mhm.
love the idea of dating virtually. I'm actually a huge fan of online dating. Sometimes people are like, oh my God, online dating totally sucks. And I love that you're being so honest about it. You're like, it's come to this. But the difference is that you had intention, and I love that you are realizing, and like, let me tell you, you mentioned two things that I feel like really are going to resonate with a lot of women. You're dating in the past a narcissist. A lot of women, and we've all encountered fucking narcissists, and it is so intense and so manipulative, and it does really hurt on so many levels. But I feel like you're so driven for that personal development, the growth. You're digging in deep. That's such a necessary step. Like when I talk to women, I'm like, oh, let's talk about self-love and self-worth. Like, oh no, I'm fine. I just need
Right.
to find my person. I'm like, yeah, but that's a huge freaking part of you finding your person. You need to really resolve and dig deep on like the shit that you've gone through and like really heal and like figure all that out. And you were willing to do all of that work, and you really did. So like now you've gone through the work, and now you have that intention. You're like, I know what I'm worth. I have these non-negotiables. I'm not gonna fucking settle for less, right?
Mhm.
So then what happens next?
Well, so I did like I remember when you said, write what you want and write your non-negotiables. And I remember thinking, okay, but like maybe my non-negotiables is too demanding. And I was like really afraid that maybe I was just expecting too much. And you're like, well, and this was like the game changer for me was when you said, well, like what if it wasn't outrageous? Like what if you could have that?
Yeah.
And I hadn't really considered that possibility. It just felt like these are too many demands. But no, I wouldn't even say that they were unreasonable. Like really in hindsight, they weren't unreasonable. It's just that like I think the more you know what you want, the smaller this pool is gonna get. So it does feel a bit more like needle in the haystack.
Yeah.
Um, but that needle is still in there,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So that kind of changed the game when you specifically said that, like what if it could be possible? So when I started to do more of the online dating and just getting more comfortable with like scanning profiles, I realized, hey, I could have things in common with everyone on this platform.
Mhm.
But how am I going to find my person with all these things in common? And and that's where I realized that the non-negotiables became even more important because I could like anybody. I could get along with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I could technically be like a roommate maybe with a lot of people or, have a situationship with a lot of people. But like what's making like my person have that extra special sauce to be special and be my person that these other like thousands of guys on these platforms don't have.
Yeah.
And so that's where I got a bit more settled into, this virtual space. And I was like, hey, wait a minute, like let's just have a conversation and then kind of like come down with a hammer. And so I started to like I built my profiles to be, more controversial or like to put like really challenging points on there that someone would either be completely repulsed or really curious to talk. And
Yeah.
I was like, if they don't have a sense of humor, like they won't get this. Or if they don't like believe XYZ, then they won't want to talk about this.
Exactly.
So So, but I wanted to be with someone that I could talk to, and like even if we don't necessarily see eye to eye on the same point, but that we know how to communicate.
Yeah.
So that was, kind of like big checkpoint number one.
Love it.
and and so I think that doing things that way just eliminated a lot right off the top. So it made dating a lot easier as well, because I don't have to talk to 100 swipes, like 100 swipe
Yes,
people.
exactly.
Maybe of the 100 swipes, if my opening question was like, I don't know, what do you think about hookup culture, for instance?
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, like however they answer this could very easily be a deal breaker for me.
Yes.
So if just with that one opening question, it's like it's very to the point of whether or not it lines up with my values and how you think about this, and you can walk yourself out the door.
Yes, girl.
Um,
Yes.
so I just wanted to save time and didn't really believe in like starting off all sweet, like, what's your favorite color? Oh, me too.
No, but this is
Cool.
exactly, this is so important, and the message that I'm all about, and you know this, is that we're always trying to play it safe. Like, we are conditioned, women, to be like, let's play the game. Don't scare him off. And I'm
Uh,
like, no,
mhm.
like, we need to like be ourselves authentically, fully put ourselves out there, and we scare the wrong guys away. Okay,
Well,
perfect.
exactly.
Perfect. And then the right person, our person, is not going to be scared. It's not going to, he is going to be there. And not only that, the more honest and authentic you are, the deeper your emotional connection with that person,
Right.
So it's just like, don't play freaking games from the beginning. Put your heart out there.
Yeah.
And so, like, tell me how you met, because we haven't talked about like what we were celebrating today. Like, hello, can we say it? What is
Okay, well, okay, so I ended up the last app that I used was Facebook dating, and I had heard about it at like my cousin was telling me about it at a family dinner, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I just like broke up with my girlfriend. He's like, I'm just checking out Facebook dating. I was like, what's that? And anyway, signed up like at the house, and yeah, like between like 2 or 3 days later, I met the guy I'm with now that I'm actually engaged to. And so this was in like September 2020. So still, yeah, during the pandemic. So we did like a lot of the virtual dating, and we kind of started off both of us with these like controversial questions or like hot topics right off the bat, no sugarcoating, and just like, okay, you can talk. I'm interested. I like your brain. Like, how does this, like, and I like at first I didn't really like his guts, because it was just like, damn, like I hadn't met my match like with someone that bold. And I was like, I'm being put on the hot seat? Like, what the hell is this? Um, but obviously that's like one of the main characteristics that I really love and respect and appreciate about him, is that he's not afraid to set me straight too, like, hey, like back off, like this has gone too far, or like, you're being too aggressive, or whatever. And so
to call you out? Because, by the way, it's
yeah,
important. Like, hello, being, calling someone out is so important in a relationship, always. Like, Will and I still call each other out. 15 years we've been married, right? But it's the way you do it, with respect and love. But it's about checking each other and growing together. So, like,
mhm,
I feel like you were like totally stimulated by like, oh, he's intellectual, he's able to communicate, he is like calling you out. Like, this is amazing. And I didn't realize you met on Facebook dating.
yeah.
Dude, like, hello, wait a second. A few of my clients have literally met like the love of their life on Facebook dating. It's
I
like
was
bananas. Yeah.
pleasantly surprised, because it was weird. Like I didn't feel like I met a lot of quality like potential matches on Facebook. I think most of my yeah, for me, most of my strongest potentials were off of like either OK Cupid or Hinge,
Okay.
or the ones I had best conversations with. But then Facebook goes on there literally like just 2 3 days, and I deactivated the app after, and we just continued talking. And we got to know each other over about like 2 3 months before we were really, I guess, like in a relationship that we didn't really declare. It was kind of like, okay, I guess this is a thing now. Um, and
Okay.
and I,
Okay.
I wouldn't have been a fan of that, but it's just that like I'm someone very systematic about things like that. Like I want us to have clear understandings. Today is a date, today's a contract, today's this, today's that. But like it was very simple, and it just felt very natural to be in another phase.
Yeah.
And same with like in general adulting, like I don't know, I'm just someone that I guess I have a bit of a Peter Pan syndrome sometimes that like I'm like, oh, I'm really an adult. These are like big girl things, you know?
You're like
And
getting married, Rosie.
I felt scared. Like I felt scared, but not because it was scary, but it was just because, oh, I'm taking like another step. Like this means I'm really an adult. And
Yeah.
and and it was that part that scared me, but not like getting married to him, if that makes
Oh
sense.
my God, stop. You're so cute. I love it.